things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Hey, folks, how you going? Hope you're having a bloody decent day of it and staying out of trouble. That's the best thing we can all hope for. Tony was first off in the room tonight, mate. Thank you so much for getting in early. And, boy, you did get in very quick once I posted. Running a bit late today, but we're getting there. At least we got here on time. That's better than I have been doing. Thank you to everybody who has shouted out, obviously seen the post that I put up on Facebook yesterday. That would indicate a level of stupidity that I was hitherto probably not necessarily known for. For those that are unaware, took a bit of a tumble. We're cleaning up around the property here, getting a lot of wood. And yesterday I was trying to put probably the better part of 6 or 8 ton of wood onto the back of a truck. And we got to a point where we needed to pick up just some of the last bits of it by hand on a very steep slope. And I managed to somehow get myself into a position where when I threw a bit of wood into the back of the truck, I overbalanced, inertia being what it is. I started heading downhill and it was on a very precarious slope, lots of rocks, lots of sticks, not really sticks, more like branches, a rock waterway, all sorts of different bloody things. If I had gone left, it would have been a lot worse than it turned out to be. You may or may not be able to see the side of my face or my ear here. I can give you a better view of what it looked like yesterday. So luckily, my fall was broken by the front left-hand wheel of the truck. And that chunk of skin that got taken out of my ear hole there, you can see, was on the wheel nut. But at least it stopped me going further down the hill because I could have gone another 50 or 60 meters. But apparently I looked very delicate, pirouetting my way down the side of this hill, trying not to dislocate a knee, break a leg, or fall on this wrist. I was very, very determined to keep this wrist off. What I did do was put an egg the size of a football on my leg, which was reasonably about the only painful thing. This thing isn't painful at all, but the leg was pretty painful. And I've got to tell you, last night, X39 patch on the big swelling thing that was happening on my leg. When I got into bed, I think the patch had only been on about 4 hours. When I got into bed, my leg was very painful. And for the, probably first half of the night, I found it very difficult to be on my left side, which is normally how I sleep, because my left leg is the one that's been hurt and a lot of pain. Anyway, halfway through the night, I noticed there wasn't so much pain anymore, and I managed to go and get some sleep. And today I've been walking around on it quite happily. There is still a little bit of swelling there, but it's only a little bit of swelling. And all I have done is apply an X39 patch. I am blown away because the egg that was on it last night, it's still bruised, don't get me wrong. It has, it's still sore. But compared to what it could have been, I think I got off very lucky indeed. What I am doing for you folks for firewood, seriously, my God, sacrifices I make. Sounds a bit soft, I know. I apologize. Who else was in the house? Tony Sunflower, God love you. I hope that you and Rick are doing well. And yeah, I am feeling, well, it wasn't that I was feeling pretty bad about this whole thing when it happened. It just sort of happened. And believe it or not, this doesn't hurt at all on the side of my head. It more was the leg that I was a bit concerned about. I thought I might have broken it. But I haven't done anything that stupid, thank God. Plenty of other stupid things for me to do, I'm sure. But at least that one wasn't one I chalked up yesterday. Tomorrow is another day, and God knows what's going to happen. Hello, Rachel. All things well with you, I hope. And Maria's in the house. Aussie Sue, you've got to be close to getting down my way. Got to be a housewarming when you get down here, hasn't there? Or at least we'll be coming to the Russell Island pub. So let us know when that happens. We'd love to catch up. Michelle Bradley Smith, our wonderful moderator from down south. Lovely to have you on board. And to J1. Who else we got? Cunning Lingus. Spaz, mate, I hope you're doing all right today. We had a bit of a chat today. Hello, Ange. And anybody else I've missed? Katrina. I'm just scrolling through. G'day, Zippy. Nice to see you in too. All right. So let's get into it. It's been an interesting day in politics in all sorts of different genre. I must say, I'm a little bit impressed with something that's come out from Tucker Carlson. Now, I thought when I saw this coming out today, I thought, will I play this? Will I not play this? Will I play parts of this? What he said was pretty good, as it turns out, in a lot of, it's so good, in fact, that I've decided to play you his entire speech. I'm calling it his speech to the nation. I was concerned that it was going to be a trumpet of patriots, horn blowing, so to speak, with Tucker throwing his support behind Trumpet of Patriots after his tour last year, funded in great part by Clive Palmer. And what a great tour it was. It was wonderful to have him here in Australia. I was fortunate enough to see him in Brisbane, and very worthwhile it was. Not nearly as worthwhile as what I'm about to play you. If you haven't seen his message to Australia, then I urge you, watch this. And after that, we're going to catch up with Catherine Smith, who is one of the people running for a Senate seat in Queensland. Now, Dr. William Bay was running for Gap, and Gap and Hart, who Kath is running with, had formed an alliance. So we're going to discuss how that's going to actually play out. If you planned on voting above the line or below the line, whichever way, we'll have a bit of a talk about that. But first, I want to play this Tucker Carlson piece for you. And I urge you, get a cup of coffee, sit down, and listen very closely to what Tucker Carlson says here.
Follow different rules because they have more power. And I can tell you, as someone who's living in a country that is becoming that, it's not as nice at all. Now, obviously, I'm on the right side of that, so I guess I'm the beneficiary of it, but I still don't like it at all. I would much rather live in a country where, the people down the street who don't make as much as I do feel every bit as entitled to run their country as I do. I saw that in Australia, and I loved it. I admired it. It made me wistful for what the United States once was. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. But I also left Australia with a kind of sadness, a sort of a poignant feeling, because I felt that Australia was changing a lot faster than Australians understand. And that there is something about the decency of Australians that leaves them vulnerable to change from the outside. And I saw when I was in Australia, a country that was maybe 10 years behind the United States in its evolution away from democracy. And I saw Australia being attacked in exactly the same way that my country has been attacked. And it's a really simple formula. The people who want to change your country, who want to take it away from you, use your best qualities against you. Australia is a deeply compassionate country. You don't shoot the birds that attack your mailmen. And as I said, so Australians have a deep desire to be compassionate, to be decent. What if you were to leverage that against them? What if you were to tell them that they had to obey, but rather than pulling out a gun and sticking it in their face and saying obey, because that's hard to do with Australians because they're tough people, they were Gallipoli. It's a tough society. That's not going to work. Instead, you said to Australians, if you're decent, if you're a good person, then you will do this. That might work. And in fact, it will work because it's worked in my country, which has the same Anglo culture of decency and fairness and compassion and egalitarianism. And in my country, which has both been invaded and whose social structure has been turned completely upside down, there were no guns involved. Our best qualities were leveraged against us. Oh, you must do this. You must accept that men can become women and gender is not a real construct, because if you don't, you're mean. And the last thing Americans want to be is mean, because they think of themselves as nice. And I think Australia is very much the same. So then the question becomes, why would someone want to take over Australia? This is what I want to mention for a moment. and have you think about. It's really simple what's going on in Australia. And it has to do not with your country specifically or your political system specifically, but it has to do with geopolitics and the basic rules of life. And the basic rule of life is that every country needs three things: food, water, and energy. Beyond anything else, you cannot have a civilization without food, water, and energy. And unfortunately for you, and this is a mixed blessing, Australia has the world's deepest reserves of energy and essential minerals. Australia has the deepest reserves of uranium, iron ore, lithium, coal, gold, oil and gas, etc., etc., etc. Australia has the minerals the world needs, and in many cases, they are very close to the surface because of your geology and geography. They're easy to extract. They're cheap to extract. So there is no place on planet Earth richer than Australia. Now, of course, Australia is not an especially rich country because you've been prevented from extracting those essential minerals by forces within your own country. So, but keep in mind, Australia is the richest country in the world, fundamentally. You have deeper resources than anyone else, period. Why is this a problem? It's a problem because Australia has 26 million people. Less than 5,000 miles away, you have a country with 1.4 billion people. And that country with 1.4 billion people, too many people for its landmass, has the world's fastest growing economy and now the world's largest economy. And it doesn't have enough resources. That country is called China. So if you're China, you have to have China's resources. I mean, you can go to Africa, you can go to Latin America. Those are very far away. Australia's right there. It's less than 5,000 miles away. It's your neighbor. It is a lone outpost of English language and Western civilization in the middle of China's area of influence. So if you're China, you're going to take over Australia if you can. Now, of course, I'm not the first person to think of this. Strategists in Australia and the West have been thinking about this for a long time, and the solution has been to put an enormous American military base in the middle of Australia, which is rarely mentioned, but it's there, and it's there for a reason, and it's there to keep China at bay. And most people in Australia, when I mention this to them, think it's been pretty effective. We got the Americans here, and they're probably nuclear weapons, and like, we're safe. We're not going to be invaded. Well, I could have told you that. The Chinese are not going to invade your country with an armada of ships. They haven't even invaded Taiwan yet, which they think is theirs. And you could make a case that it is theirs. So they're not going to invade you. And by the way, why would you want to invade Australia? It's too big, and the people are too tough. Again, I refer you to Gallipoli, where in the service of the British Empire, an empire that has never treated you well, by the way. In fact, if you really want an enemy, it's Great Britain. That's my personal view. No offense or anything. But everybody knows that it's not worth getting in a fist fight with the Australians, either in a bar, or a war, because they're going to extract a cost. They're going to punch you in the face. So it's not worth it. They're never going to invade you. What they're going to do is subvert you. They're going to undermine you. They're going to take your country away from you incrementally, bit by bit, without you even knowing it. Now, how are they going to do that? Well, the very first thing they're going to do is buy off your politicians. What does it cost to invade a country? Well, we invaded Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan and Libya, and now we're doing the same, I guess, in Yemen. I mean, the United States loves to invade people. And it's extremely expensive. In fact, we are bankrupt as a result of invading people. So why would you do that when you could just buy off Canberra? So you take someone like Anthony Albanese. What does it cost to buy off some sort of low-grade spiv like Anthony Albanese? I don't know. I haven't tried. But my guess is you could probably buy Albanese for less than it costs to buy, say, a new Tesla. It's not expensive. This is a person with no job prospects, no obvious skills, who has the respect of nobody, including his wife. So it's like, why would you just buy him? And by the way, I'm not attacking, your prime minister. I'm not singling him out or your lawmakers. I've actually visited Canberra and been up to your parliament, and there's some awfully nice people. Ralph is one of them, great guy. They're very much like the people who run my country, the legislators who run my country. You know, they're people who, you know, in a better economy would be selling used cars. But they can't, and so they're your lawmakers, and they get pensions, but it's all very, if I can just be honest with you, it's all very low grade. These are not impressive people. They're not making a ton of money. They're not creating anything. They're bureaucrats. And so what does it cost to buy them off? Oh, not very much. A lot less than it costs to invade. Now, I'm not saying your lawmakers have been bought off. I'm stating unequivocally they've been bought off. There's no question about it. And it's obvious in what's happening in your country. And the first reason you know that your government has been bought off by China is that your country is being invaded in a way that is designed to make you not notice. And you're being invaded through immigration, refugees and legal immigrants. 200,000 a month. 200,000 a month. No country can sustain that level of immigration without falling apart, period. Especially not a country of 26 million. Now, if you think about it, and by the way, Australia being a very decent country, very much like Canada, very much like the United States, you're not encouraged to say anything about this or you're a bad person because you're offering a better life to people and like, how dare you not do that? What's never noted is that you are stealing the future of your children when you do that in a bunch of different ways. For one, the most obvious, your kids can't afford houses anymore. In Australia, just like the United States, you have a continental-sized landmass, and you had a ton of inexpensive, pretty, comfortable housing with space, with a little yard, nothing extravagant, but the average middle-class person could afford a house, and then a spouse, and then children, and maybe a dog, and a lawn. All the things that the human heart desires, a little piece of my own, a place for my children to have children and for our generations to continue. That's the true dream of every person, is to have grandchildren and then great-grandchildren and see, you know, his line continue. That's the most basic desire that people have. And it's being stolen from you by immigration. Not because the immigrants are bad, to be clear about it. I do not begrudge anybody moving from, say, Rawalpindi, Pakistan to Sydney, Australia. I've been to both cities. I'd much rather live in Sydney. I'm not mad at the guy from Rawalpindi. That's a completely rational choice on his part. And that's true in the United States. We've got a ton of people moving up from Latin America and from around the world, and all of them are leading better lives in the United States. Good for them. I get it. I'm not mad at them. I'm outraged at my lawmakers for allowing it because in the US, as in Australia, most people's children can't afford to live anymore because we have a principle that is encoded in nature called supply and demand. If you have less of something that people want, its price goes up. And housing, and there are a million other things, education, healthcare, infrastructure, all of them are under unsustainable pressure by the number of new people coming in. So your leaders have destroyed the hope of a future for your children. That alone merits a revolution, and I mean it. But being nice people, you've said almost nothing about it because you don't want to be racist. But it's not racist to say, I was born here, and my children, by virtue of their citizenship in this country, deserve a future. But the second effect, and this is the point, that mass immigration has on a country is that it steals its core. It eliminates the cohesion between people. You have, over time, this is true in the United States as well as Australia, and it's about to be very true for you, given the scale of immigration, you have nothing in common as a country when a huge percentage of your population just got there from somewhere else. You don't share a common language, a common religion. You don't share a common history. I'm sure there are many people in the audience listening tonight who had ancestors at Gallipoli. No one coming to your country did. And I know that Gallipoli is, one of many moments in Australian history that you recognize and celebrate, and you remember the bravery, the valiance of your ancestors. Will you do that in 50 years? Of course not. Because the guy from Rawalpindi doesn't know what that is. And why would he? It's not his fault. But it means that your country is changing so fast that there's no country in the end. There's just groups of people with nothing in common. That's not a country. That's a series of tribes. And the reason that you do that to a country is so you can take it over, because you throw it off balance. There's no organized resistance. There can't be organized resistance to your program because there's no dominant group of people to resist it. And that's exactly what they're doing. This is being encouraged by the Chinese, and it's working because they're leveraging your decency against you. When I was in Australia, the thing that shocked me the most was I think it's called a land acknowledgement. I found it one of the most grotesque things I've ever seen, one of the most profound humiliation rituals I've ever witnessed in my life. Every time a meeting opens, I think the school day begins this way. Every time a commercial airliner lands, you come in on Qantas, and they announce that the land that you're on does not belong to you. And I thought to myself, who is this helping? Is it helping the indigenous community? If so, tell me how. When you say this doesn't belong to me, is someone in the indigenous community getting a job or a government grant? No. No one is benefiting except the people who seek to steal your country. And they are going to steal your country, and they're telling you so. When you are forced to say something is not yours, that means someone else is about to take it from you. If you're sitting at home one night and an armed group of people show up at your house with guns and say, henceforth, we would like you to say out loud every single day, this is not our house. That's not your house. And you say, but I paid for this house. I've got a mortgage on it. It's my house. No. They stick a gun in your face. Every day you repeat, this is not my house. What do you think their intention is? Why do you think they're asking you to do that? They're asking you to do that so they can steal your house. And when they do steal your house, you won't put up a fight because you've been trained to believe it's not your house. That's exactly what a land acknowledgement is. And that's also what the trans agenda is. That's also what the green agenda is. The trans agenda, of course, is designed to sow chaos. Again, it's a scenario in which nobody benefits. Does the trans kid who's been castrated or rendered sterile by puberty blockers, does that person benefit? No, his life is destroyed. What's the suicide rate among trans people? No one asks. It's the highest of any group. Because pumping a child full of dangerous drugs hurts the child, of course. How does castrating a child help anybody? No one. But what it does do is throw your society into chaos. If you can't acknowledge the most basic difference in nature, which is the difference between male and female, all of nature is predicated on that difference. And not just in the animal world, among plants. Everything comes down to the binary, male, female. And of course, human civilization is based on that as well, because it's inherent in nature. It's not something we made up. It's not a cultural construct. It's embedded in our genes. Your sex is determined by a blood test because it's at the cellular level. So why are they telling you otherwise? Because when you convince people that nature isn't real, that the laws of nature somehow don't apply, that your leaders, Anthony Albanese, that sleazy little creep, is somehow God and he can eliminate the difference between men and women or control nature. When you convince people of that, you throw them off balance and you sow chaos. And chaos is exactly what you want if you're taking over a country. It's exactly what you want. If you can confuse your enemy, you've won. And that's exactly, as I said, what the green agenda is. I want to say it once again. Australia is the richest country in the world. Uranium, gold, bauxite, iron ore, lithium. These are the things, copper, the deepest reserves in the world. These are the things you need to run a modern society, oil and gas. And you've been told that you can't use them? Because what? Coal is evil? You have the deepest coal reserves in the world, but you can't use it? Guess who is using it? China. They're happy to use it. You ship your coal to China. You've got more iron ore than any country and easier to extract iron ore than any country in the world. How many steel plants do you have? Let me just do the math. 0. Because you've been told you can't. By the Greens. Oh, and because Australians love nature so much, because they appreciate God's creation so profoundly, which is, as I said at the outset, the best thing about them. Anyone who loves nature is a friend of mine. That's how I feel. Anyone who loves animals is a friend of mine because it shows a deep decency. It acknowledges perspective. God created this. I didn't. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to be its steward. These are the best impulses a person can have. But they've been leveraged against you, and you've been disarmed. Well, you've literally been disarmed. You can't defend yourselves. You have no guns. So take 3 steps back. What is all of this? It's all connected. It is a predicate to takeover. And the group taking you over is China. And I just want to say one thing. In the United States, there's a lot of talk about China and the threat that it poses to American preeminence in the world. And that is absolutely true. It does. Its economy is bigger than ours now, and it's more real than ours because they make things. And we just sell real estate and do banking, which are not, that's not a real economy. I get it. So Americans are very afraid and they're attacking China. I do not attack China. I'm not mad at China. I'm afraid of China. We all should be. But, like the immigrants who come to our country, and I don't think they improve it, I'm not mad at those immigrants. And I'm not mad at China because China is acting in its own interest. And that's what I want my country to do, and that's what I want your country to do. And I'll just end with this because I get all spun up here. The solution to all of this is to find leaders who have a very simple goal, and that is to act on behalf of Australia. And that would seem self-evident. So you have what is often described as a democracy. I mean, of course, you've got a prime minister, we've got a president, you've got a parliament, we've got a Congress, whatever. It's the same system at its core because its central idea is that the people rule. Australians are in charge of their own country. If the majority of the Australian people want something, over time they will be granted it because they own Australia. They are not renters. They're not serfs. They're not slaves. They are citizens who are equity shareholders in their own nation. This is the idea that transformed the world. This is the idea that undergirds every democratic system. And it's certainly the core idea in Australia. And so given that, you would imagine that every leader of Australia would be looking out first and foremost to the exclusion of all others for Australia. The point is, I'm running Australia. Every decision I make should be to the benefit of Australia. And of course, I'm speaking as an American. Our system's the same, and that's what we wanted. And for, I don't know, I'm 55, my entire lifetime, we are denied that. If you look at a list of the things that Americans care about and want, and it's easily found, it's called public opinion polling. You have it in your country as well. You can ask people, like, what are your top concerns? What do you want? Australians don't want 200,000 foreigners showing up in their country every month to make their lives unaffordable. They would like lower energy costs. They would like a more robust economy. They'd like cheaper housing. They don't want to see their community hospitals overwhelmed with foreigners. They paid for those hospitals. When they need to go to the hospital, they want medical care. This is true in every country. It's true in New Zealand. It's true in Canada. It's true in the UK. It's true in the United States. And in all of those countries, to varying degrees, they've been denied the things they want. And they've been instead told that the things that they're going to get are these abstract goals. Their government's going to end climate change. They're going to bring something called equity. They're going to, like invade a bunch of other countries. You, because you are such a sweet and loyal nation, have joined us in a bunch of foreign adventures around the world. You got not one thing out of it. Neither did we. No American benefited from the war in Iraq. No Australian benefited from the war in Iraq. There's agitation to start a new war with Iran. Trust me, no Australian will benefit from that either. And if we do it, I hope you don't join it. And no American will benefit either. So that's what we actually got. We told them what we wanted. We got something completely different. We got things that hurt us. How did that happen? Well, it happened because we were tricked into thinking that the two parties vying for power disagreed with each other on a fundamental level. And it turned out they didn't. I'll just speak for the United States. I'm not an expert on your politics, though I've watched it very carefully. In the United States, we have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and we are told day in and day out, and this is the most insidious propaganda we're ever told, that these parties are at war with each other and they've got a different vision of the world, and they pick these battles, they fight over whatever. They fight over the trans thing quite a bit, or Black Lives Matter, or some other manufactured nonsense. They're always trying to get you to hate each other on the basis of race. They call you a racist, but of course they inspire race hatred to keep you occupied so you don't notice while they're looting your country. That's the game, by the way. So we were told this for, 50, 60 years, that these two parties were in opposition to each other. And it was like this critical battle, and every election was the most important election of your lifetime. I'm sure you hear similar nonsense in your country. And right around, 2015, 2016 in the United States, people began to realize, wait a second, on the core questions that matter, and to restate, the core questions that matter are the economy and foreign policy. Where does your money come from and who do you kill? On those questions, the parties were completely aligned. They acted as one. It was the uniparty, as we say in the United States. One party, a one-party state. One-party states are by definition corrupt because no one's watching. No one's pushing back. They can do whatever they want, and they did. And so in the United States, what we did was, rather than create a third party, because that's difficult in our system, easier in yours, but in our system, it's very hard to create a third party. The two parties that made it, very hard. We just snuck a guy in as the nominee of one party who didn't really represent that party. He represented effectively a third party, the People's Party, the party that wanted to deliver to people what they actually wanted. And what they wanted was an end to immigration, because it's destabilizing our country and lowering the standard of living for Americans. That's a fact. Wanted to end these incredibly counterproductive and totally immoral foreign wars. And he was this large orange man called Donald Trump. And he became president. And the response to him was so ferocious. I lived in Washington at the time. I can barely even describe it. And of course, you, I'm sure, saw this on your televisions. He was denounced as a racist. They always call you a racist. Whatever you think about Donald Trump, he's not a racist at all. In fact, he got a higher percentage of the non-white vote in the last election than any Republican ever since Abraham Lincoln. They called him a racist. Then they impeached him twice. They tried to kick him out of office. He was an elected president, and they tried to boot him out because they hated him so much. Then they indicted him and tried to send him to prison for the rest of his life on absurd charges. Charges so absurd, most Americans never understood what they were. They were made up. And then, of course, famously in July of last year, they tried to murder him. They shot him in the face at a rally. We still don't know how that happened, but on some sort of broader level, we know exactly how that happened. He challenged the status quo, and they tried to kill him twice. And I'm recounting what you know to remind you that if you're going to take on entrenched power in your own country, it's a very rough ride. They don't like it at all. And they've had the system in place for a very long time, and they benefited from it. And a lot of kind of low IQ, mediocre people have very high paying jobs because of the system. So they'll fight like animals to keep the system in place. And in your case, you've got the government of China, which is clearly bankrolling a lot of this stuff. So that worked for us, actually. And in the United States, we had this extraordinary person. Whenever you think, you can like Donald Trump or not like him. But there's probably never been, there never has been in my lifetime, a political leader in any country who's persevered so doggedly through headwinds like that. It's almost unbelievable. And he was reelected. And now, and I'm sure you're watching this, he is going through the incredibly difficult process of trying to sort out what's been happening for the last 60 years. I mean, we don't even know who murdered our president, our elected president in 1963. We still haven't found out. But he's pledged to try and find out. But think about that. Our president was assassinated with the knowledge of his own government, elements within his own government, murdered. And every subsequent president from November 1963 until November of 2024 has kept that secret of both parties. What does that tell you? They're all in it together. If there's ever an assault on a democracy, it's the assassination of an elected leader. I mean, that's the most obvious assault on democracy, and they've kept it secret. But he's kept going, and he's made progress, and I think he'll make more progress. And, we'll see. But above all, it is a triumph of the core promise of democracy, which is that the people have some say in how they're ruled. And you are very far from that. I'm not criticizing you, but I'm watching closely, and you are very far from that. And you need leaders who are willing to put your country first. And I'm just telling you, anybody who steps forward in Australia to do that and who means it, who's not just lying to you, who means it, who isn't joking, had better be ready for an extremely rough ride. But it will be worth it. And the last thing I'll say is that it's going to take someone who's willing to pay any cost to lead your country out of where it is right now. And I would argue that's always a prerequisite for leadership. The leader is the person who's willing to lay down his life for the people he leads. And that's not just true of national leaders, that's true of leaders at every level. That's what leadership is. It's the person who stands up and says, you are more important than I am. And if I need to literally die protecting you, serving you, I will. That's the definition of leadership. It's true in the home. The reason the father is the father is because if armed people come to the house to hurt his family, he will gladly die to protect his family. That is true in the military. The officer is in charge because he will die to protect his men, because he loves them. The father loves his children. The officer loves his men. They're willing to lay down their lives. That's true even in companies. Any leader who's not willing to give up everything he has for the people he leads should not be the leader, period, by definition. And so I just pray that your country, which is truly, having been to most countries in the world, I can say this authoritatively, truly one of the most beautiful, wonderful, sweetest places on planet Earth. And there aren't that many left. Your country needs that leader. And when you find that leader, you will have a chance. And I will be rooting for you just so fervently. Anyway, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Got to say, it's a very impressive man. He speaks terribly well and makes an awful lot of sense. And his perspective coming from America, and we've always said we're years behind America, 5 to 10 years, his perspective is something every Australian really should consider. I'm not saying you have to adopt it, but you really should consider it. And he does present some compelling arguments. It doesn't appear that he's a big Albo fan. And that alone puts him pretty high up in my books. But aside from that, I think he's identified the fact that the uni parties are not helping anyone anywhere in the world, and that this is a commonality between countries all over the place. We have an opportunity at this election to maybe make a bit of a difference, and he is encouraging us to do so. After this very short break, I will set up with Cass Smith, and we'll talk about this election. There has been a little bit of confusion in the Senate ticket for Queensland regarding Gap and Hart, the alliance that was formed for a vote above the line on the Senate ticket. We'll talk about that too, and I'll be very interested to hear what Cass has to say about certainly something that Tucker Carlson mentioned there. I want to talk about that a little bit further too. So back right after this.
Hi, are you passionate about supporting independent media and social events? Voice of Freedom is dedicated to bringing you the latest happenings and things that matter. But we can't do it without your help. By donating, sponsoring, or becoming a member, you're not just supporting our mission. You're joining a community that values transparency and engagement. Your contributions allow us to continue producing high-quality content that informs and inspires. Visit VOFHQ.com to make a donation or explore sponsorship or membership opportunities. You can even donate using crypto. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard as we continue to create a vibrant platform for social change. Go to VOFHQ.com. Help us to help you by joining us and making a difference today.
You've been watching social media. You've probably been catching up with what's been going on with Dr. Billy Bay and the Gap Party, particularly if you are in Queensland. Now, if you're not in Queensland, this little bit probably is not going to affect you too much. But Dr. Billy Bay and the Heart Party came together, Billy Bay and Gap, and the Heart Party and Cass Smith running as part of the Heart ticket here in Queensland on the Senate side at any rate, came together. We had a launch a couple of weeks ago, and then all of a sudden in the social media, it's all been lit up. Billy Bay has left Gap, is running as an independent. Vote for him below the line, and make sure you vote independent, or Independence and Freedom Party is his mantra from now on. Going forward in this weekend, he is still standing. However, it does leave a bit of a grey area into what happens if you vote above the line and tick Gap and the Heart Party above the line, as we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. So I thought I'd get the lady back herself and see what light we can shed on the matter. Good evening, Cass. Thanks for joining us. I know you're very busy, so thanks for sharing a bit of your time with us tonight.
That's absolutely fine, Carl. Thanks for having me. It's very interesting times.
It is. This is the second time you've stood for the people to maybe get a seat in the Australian House of Parliament. Curiouser and curiouser, I imagine, is what you're seeing at the moment. Things seem to be playing out one way, and then all of a sudden overnight they flip completely. Has your head stopped spinning in the last week?
No, not really. And I guess it's just the theme of my life at the moment. It's like I don't know if you remember those Find Your Own Adventure books where you just wake up every morning and you can choose a different page to go on a different adventure. It feels like that because I wake up one day and I think, yes, this is the direction. And then I check my phone. It's like, oh, okay, all right, that's not the direction. Yeah, it's very interesting times, and it's a changing feast. And I guess that's what we'll talk about. But there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, so without getting into the intricacies of why William Bay and Rod Cullerton separated ways, what it has done is left a bit of a strange thing on the Senate ticket, meaning that the Gap Heart Alliance on the Queensland Senate ticket is still going to be there above the line, and people in theory could still, if you want to vote for Cass at least, you could vote for above the line in that regard. It's a bit unclear, though, what would happen with those votes. So if you wanted to be sure, I'm guessing that it's best to be safe and vote below the line this Saturday. Would that be right?
Yeah, it is really unclear, and that's the unfortunate thing with, like, as I said, I'm not going to get into the Billy Bay versus Rod Cullerton argument either. Like, I don't know who's telling the truth. Yep. As we always know with every debate in life, and you know, no matter where you are in any sort of argument, there's one side, the other side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. And we don't know that, and we probably won't ever know what the actual truth is. So I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, there's just confusion because the unfortunate thing about what William Bay has done is pull out at such a late stage. So the Senate the tickets have already been printed. I mean, pre-polling's been going the whole week. I think I heard today 2 million people have already voted. The how to vote cards are already being distributed by our volunteers. It's like, okay, so where does that leave us? And it's actually really hard to even get an answer out of the Australian Electoral Commission. Michael O'Neill, who's the leader, obviously, of the Heart Party, Barbara O'Neill's husband, has been calling the AEC, and we've been trying to get answers, but the AEC seems too busy to even give us some answers. And in all honesty, they probably don't actually know at this stage, because Rod Cullerton's talking about legal action against Billy Bay, and I think Billy Bay will counter the legal action, and we might not even know for a year or two what the outcome is. So I guess Michael O'Neill has come out and said, if you want to vote for Cass, note I'm actually Catherine Smith on the ticket. If you want to vote for me, vote below the line. So put me number 1 or wherever you want to put me in your choice. And hopefully put all the Freedom candidates 1 to 12 Below the line, I think those that vote above the line, in case people have already voted, if you put one for Heart Party, Gap Party, there is still some contention that those votes would flow to me anyway, because William Bay has stepped down and Gap will get to decide where those votes go and who steps up. And I've heard on the grapevine, Rod Cullerton would put me there.
Right.
However, it's just really unknown. It'll go into a legal contention between Billy Bay and Rod Cullerton and Michael O'Neill. Should we actually win a seat at number one, Gap Heart? Yeah.
The movement is very strong, particularly in Queensland. I also feel there's a very strong movement in parts of Victoria, or whether or not it's enough to overcome the inner city part of Melbourne, I don't know. But I really do feel that the movement for change is strong in Queensland. And if you are going to be voting and you'd like to support Cass, then below the line is the way to go. But there are 11 other slots you must fill, whether you put Cass in 1 or 12 or somewhere in between. You've got to fill those other 11 slots. And you'll only be able to do that by identifying the Freedom Party people who are running in your electorate, right? And the best way to do that would be number the Freedom Parties 1 through whatever they can. As if you've got 12 of them, great. More than likely you won't have. But whatever you do, make sure you make the uni parties last in anything that you do. The Labor Nationals, the Labor Greens, rather, and the Liberal Nationals, make them last in anything you do, and then work your way up from there. Take your choice between One Nation and whoever. If you're going to be voting and you want to make sure your vote counts and goes to Cass, if that's who you want to support, then do it below the line rather than relying on the Gap Heart above the line box, which we were very excited about getting, I've got to say, Cass. Billy was overjoyed.
We were, and it's very disappointing what's happened. But to me, it's just intrinsic in the freedom movement, isn't it? We just can't get out. We can't get together. It's very sad. It's ridiculous, and leaves little hope in some regards. Maybe next election will be different. But until all of the freedom parties get together on the same page, we're fighting an uphill battle.
This leads us, I think, to a conversation about leadership, and that's something that Tucker Carlson mentioned earlier. I just want to play you a piece from his speech to our nation, if you like, that we've just seen. But there's a piece here that particularly interested me.
You need leaders who are willing to put your country first. And I'm just telling you, anybody who steps forward in Australia to do that and who means it, who's not just lying to you, who means it, who isn't joking, had better be ready for an extremely rough ride. But it will be worth it. And the last thing I'll say is that it's going to take someone who's willing to pay any cost to lead your country out of where it is right now. And I would argue that's always a prerequisite for leadership. The leader is the person who's willing to lay down his life for the people he leads. And that's not just true of national leaders, that's true of leaders at every level. That's what leadership is.
I think he's 100%. You got to love him. I was going to cut up his whole speech and use bits of it in tonight's show, and it got to a point where it's like, well, why am I bothering cutting up these things? Everything he's saying is relevant to us, and it's clear he addressed it to us. When I first had it come across my desk, I thought, oh, here we go. Tucker's throwing his support behind Trumpet of Patriots. There isn't one mention of Trumpet of Patriots or Clive Palmer or any of that in the speech we've just seen, if you've sat through it all, folks. But what he said about leadership, Cass, I think is very poignant, given what you've just said about the freedom movement and how we can't seem to get our shit in a pile. Have you seen a leader emerge in the freedom movement yet that is capable of, in the next election, obviously not this one, of giving people hope, giving people a beacon?
Look, obviously I've got to promote myself, which I will in a moment. But Jared Rennick, absolutely. I'd love to see him as Prime Minister. Michael O'Neill himself, with Barbara O'Neill by his side and supporting him as well. Yep. Absolutely fantastic. And then I guess, I have to promote myself because that's what we're here to talk about. So when it comes to leadership, I have shown a lot of leadership in my life. I have run small corporations, large corporations, businesses that crossed every state of Australia, and really led teams from young to old, led a lot of clients. And that actually came down to a lot of self-sacrifice. When Tucker was saying about dying for the cause, I don't think I would have died for my staff and my business, but I did certainly sacrifice myself for years. Often as a leader and the head of a company, they think the directors are going to get paid so much. Often it's the directors that are getting paid nothing in small business. They sacrifice, they take the lowest wage of all. And I certainly know for about 10 years of building my business, I was the lowest paid in the business of 20 staff.
Right.
But then eventually it turns around and hopefully you get your good rewards if you don't fail, because the majority of small business fails. But I think where the leadership comes in is, for me anyway, and I have spoken about this, is I'm an accountant. I'm a very quiet, conservative person. I led my life previously just sitting at my desk, leading my business and my staff and keeping to myself, as accountants do. Then what happened in 2020, we all know what happened in 2020. I thought back to my life, and the most important thing to me, and a lot of other people will understand this, is my kids. And I realized that I had raised them toxin-free, completely toxin-free from the day they were born. They were lucky if they got Panadol. I would say, no, if they had a headache or a big cold, if they had a big fever, I'd wrap them up in a blanket, give them a hot bath, hot water bottle, send them to bed to sweat it out. I was a pretty tough mother in that regard. But I protected my kids the whole way through. And as long as nobody interfered with my kids, that was all that mattered to me. When 2020 happened and my kids were adults, and I knew that I could no longer protect them, and I knew that they were going to get forced to do things that I fundamentally disagreed with. I knew that I couldn't sit at my desk anymore being a quiet accountant just hoping my kids would be okay. I needed to stand up, and I needed to, the only way I could now protect my children, adult children, is to stand up on a stage and start talking about this. And I did in Canberra, a rally of 10 people, which then grew to 100 people, which then grew to 1,000 people. And then before we knew it, we had the 1 million people in Canberra. I was part of all of that. And so would I lay down my life for my country? I would lay down my life for my kids, as most parents would. And if I have to lay down my life for my country so that I can protect my kids, well, then yes, I would. I would stand and face whatever would come at me through standing up for the freedoms of my kids. And then it's not just my kids, it's then your kids' kids, everybody's kids, grandkids, because what Tucker says, like, please, for those that haven't watched it, watch all of it. It's eye-opening. I mean, we know this stuff, but the way Tucker puts it is, Australia is in trouble. Australia really is in trouble, and we need leaders that will lead us out of this. Unfortunately, I don't think this election is going to be the one that's going to save us. No, but we have to just keep standing up. And maybe by next election, like I did watch another clip today that was on one of the news channels, for God's sake, saying that Australians are sick of Labor and Liberal. They are sick of the majors. They are looking for alternatives. They are overwhelmingly supporting the freedom parties. So, but I don't think it's going to be enough for this election. But maybe when Australia continues down the path it's going, in 4 years' time at the next election, and the freedom parties learn from this election and maybe stick together next time, well, then hopefully we'll make a bigger impact. But anyway, that's not to be too negative. Let's just give it a go this election. You never know. We could get some good senators into seats that could, as people might know, the MAD bill, the misinformation and disinformation bill, was stopped by some senators. So we need some senators in the Senate to block the bills that are really going to affect us. So, give it a go. Let's see if we can get some in.
absolutely. All the best. We won't be able to speak to you again, I don't think, before the election blackout happens. So wish you all the very best for the election. And once again, folks, if you are interested in supporting Cass, you can do so in Queensland. She's running on the Senate seat, Catherine Smith. Vote below the line to be sure. That means you've got to fill out 12 boxes below the line. And obviously, if you're going to vote for Cass, put her wherever you feel, but try and ferret out all the freedom parties and preference them well before you preference the uni parties. That's, I think, all we can hope for at the moment is to have the lowest voter turnout or vote rather for the major parties in history. And I think we're on our way to that. I really do.
Might just say one last thing, if that's okay, Carl.
Yeah.
Something that's really bothering me is the continual people on my Facebook saying, boycott it, don't vote. It's like I have not heard one congruent argument as to how not voting is going to help. Like, I know we talk about the illegal corporation and everything, and the more I read about that, the more I agree. Yes. Mm-hmm. But what does not voting do? Nothing. Do people out there that have taken the no vote path, what do they hope to achieve? Do they really think that the incoming government, Labor, probably, Liberal maybe, will come in and they'll look at the ballot results and go, oh my God, 500,000 people didn't vote. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We need to appease these people. And no, they're laughing all the way home when we don't vote, because they're scared of the freedom parties gaining traction. But then if the freedom people themselves are telling everybody not to vote, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
I would counter that. Well, the not to vote thing, certainly I would counter that. The argument being put forward this time round, though, is based on the fact that there were 4 million plus Australians who refused to vote in the last election. And now that there are Freedom Party options and a number of them, and quite serious options available, there is 4 million votes up for grabs. These people may choose to come back and vote this time round because they see something that they haven't before. Some will never vote because they're so far up the common law path that they understand the fraud that's being committed. And anyway, we've all been through those arguments. Each to their own. Make up your own decision. Make up your own mind. Make your own decision. And try and do the right thing by you, yourself, your family, your soul, as I know you are doing, Cass, with what you're doing, standing up for the people. And I can honestly tell folks that standing for the Senate in this election campaign wasn't exactly on Cass's radar for 2025. All right?
Definitely was not.
I had a bit of an idea of some of the plans for 2025, and this didn't play a role at all. But it goes to show the strength of the woman who, when called on and sees that there is a need, will stand up. And this is the second time she's done it. So
I think I should also add to that it was the Heart Party that convinced me. As soon as I read the policies, and if you haven't done it, please do. Hop on the heartparty.com.au, read the policies. HEART stands for health, environment, accountability, rights and transparency, and read the policies. And I can't fault any of them. So that's when I read the policies, I just went, yeah, okay, I'll stand up for this party. And I will stay on with them if they want me for future elections or whatever they want me to do from now on, because I just believe in everything they've got to say. Yep,
beautiful. Best of luck for the weekend. I hope it goes very well for you. And you never know, we might have a senator in the family by next week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much, Cass Smith. And as I say, if you want to vote directly for Cass, you can do so below the line and vote for her 1, 2, 3, 4, or 12, whatever you choose. But whatever you do, fill out 12 boxes below the line. And if you are of a Freedom Party mind, then make sure that the people you are preferencing are Freedom Party people, and that their preferences are going to Freedom Party people. The only way we are going to be able to make a difference in all of this, folks, is to be able to keep your vote alive in the count. And the best way to do that is to keep preferencing the Freedom people.
Look, you go to changes in society. We live in a much more fragmented society than we used to. And It used to be the case that people watched the ABC or Channel 7 or Channel 9 or Channel 10 news, and in more recent times SBS as well. So there was a common set of facts, and they picked up the paper in the morning, a common paper, there was some commonality there, and that was how they got their information. So therefore there was less diversity and less noise and genuine information, a mix of both, but also less misinformation out there.
There you go. Bring yourself back. Something a bit weird with that clip. Albo just complaining about how brainwashing wasn't working the way it should, because people are not watching mainstream media, are not buying newspapers. Although I bought one for the first time in years today because I wanted to read a story that was particularly affronting for those folks who are homeless on the Gold Coast and living in a park, Carey Park in Southport. The council, if you're not aware, have decided they're going to evict all those people staying in the park, living in tents, sleeping rough. They've got nowhere else to go. They were given till 5 o'clock today, I think, to clear out. And following on from that, if they didn't clear out, they were going to be given fines to the value of $8,000. The lunacy of what these councils, these local councils are doing is completely staggering. Let's not even think about getting into the legalities of what they're doing or the illegalities, depending on which way you want to look at it. I've run a little over time tonight, but there are one thing that I really want to mention in particular, and that's Monica Schmidt. She and Topher Field have put a video out together, and they're extolling the virtues of Monica taking Dan Andrews to court. I'm trying to be careful and I'm trying to be polite. Now, this is an invoice which indicates that Monica has been able to raise, $1,000 there, but she tells us that she has been able to raise somewhere in the vicinity of $105,000, $110,000 in a matter of a few days. 1,093 donors have donated $104,322. There's probably more in there now, in only 4 days. I put it to you people because you are the freedom movement. And I'm here with, working off donations. I know how hard it is to get any money. And I know how hard it is for you guys. But somehow Monica has been able to raise $104,000 in 4 days from the freedom movement. Really? I mean, even by Pirate John Wilson's standards, that's pretty bloody good. Personally, I think the only way she could do that is with backing from a party, backing from someone, somewhere. Now, why would she be getting this backing? Does anybody seriously think that Monica Schmidt, who couldn't actually tell you what France's role was in the Second World War, but was very prepared to try and tell you a horrendous retelling of history live from somewhere in Paris while she was taking one of her round-the-world jaunts? Does anybody seriously believe Monica is capable of running a case that will get Dan Andrews? Now, Andrews is under a bit of pressure in a lot of regard at the moment. You may recall that Dan Andrews and his wife were accused of a hit and run, well, not so much a run, but certainly a hit. They hit a 15-year-old kid on a bike. Pardon me, was the accusation. And there was a payout, a TAC payout of around $80,000. Slater and Gordon, the Labor Party lawyers, looked after negotiating that payout for that young fella. And there was an awful lot of lies, discrepancy, coercion, cover-up surrounding the details of the actual accident. Many people believe it happened at an intersection. It didn't. It happened 27 metres beyond the intersection, where it appeared the car had crossed to the wrong side of the road and hit this kid at somewhere between 40 and 60 kilometres an hour. At any rate, that's still not over for them, because the family of that young man are still suing the Andrews privately for that. However, they have just won their case against Slater and Gordon. When I say won, there was a large settlement, and hopefully that young man will be able to, well, I don't think the settlement's large enough to buy him a house, put it that way, not given the current state of the nation and the way that we are importing people. But Monica seems to believe, or seems to want us to believe, that she can raise $104,000 in 4 days, when everybody else in this freedom movement would be struggling to raise $104 in 4 days. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible. What I am saying is it's very fishy. I'm also saying it's a design. And whoever in those 1,000 donors, whoever has ploughed in a lot of money, because some of them have ploughed in clearly tens of thousands of dollars, why would they do that? You think it's to support her case? It's not. They're supporting her because they know she isn't capable of running the case, that the money will go to a law firm anyway, part of the team, so to speak. But more particularly, any case she brings against Dan Andrews and fails will mean nobody else can bring a case against Dan Andrews with better evidence, better proof, and clearly much better judgment than Monica is doing. I mean, I admire the intent, but the damage she can do going forward in forward prosecutions of Dan Andrews by getting in first is significant. He'll get away scot-free, and I believe she's helping him do that with this move. Now, I don't know who's fluffing her petticoat, but they're clearly doing it with money. Now, she's been very good with money. She's been exceptional at raising money. $253,000, I think it was, for the motorhome that she got. I don't know where that is these days. I don't know how much more she spent on her round-the-world trip that she was going to get away out of the freedom business. That's what she said, out of the freedom business. But took a round-the-world holiday on the money that was raised for her. What's going to happen to this $104,000 if there is no court case? What happens if there is $200,000 in there by now? All these are very interesting questions. And it seems, going back to what we were saying before about leadership in this community and the freedom movement eating itself up, somebody asked in the chat before about John Wilson. Nobody's heard or seen of John Wilson. He's apparently been putting out the odd email, and maybe he's been putting out the odd video. As far as I'm concerned, nobody's watching them. But somebody did send me an email that he put out not all that long ago. He was explaining to the members of the union that everything was okay with the union. Don't worry about the union. And it was quite a long letter, a lengthy letter. It, didn't say very much. It slagged off against the admins of the union, and John made it very clear once again that while he doesn't control the money, he certainly has control of the person who has control of the money. And he, in that missive that he put out, his newsletter, he claimed that he did not resign from the Freedom Union at all, ever. Well, go back and watch the last chat that Guru and I had here, because in that show I played a recording of John resigning and hanging up on the meeting at the time. So for him to come out and claim that he didn't resign at all, well, maybe there's a bit of a problem with his mental capacity. Maybe he's forgetting things, because it's as clear as day what he said on that tape. So That's one concerning aspect. The other concerning aspect that I found about John's missive, and this falls in line with Monica as well, and Dave Oneggs and Tricky, who are putting together a freedom, jerk-off-a-thon on the Gold Coast in July, where apparently all the important freedom people will be invited, provided you're on Tricky and Dave Oneggs' list. Now, those boys have figured out the easiest way to raise money, I suppose, is to throw a party or throw an event on the Gold Coast. Always a good place. But that's coming up in July, so there's their money raising. John, on the other hand, is in his last missive put out for the union whose fees were $100 for you to join. Oh, I beg your pardon. I think they were $200 for you to join for this financial year. John, in a paragraph in this newsletter, doesn't outline where the membership funds have been used this financial year. And in fact, if you listen to that recording, that's in fact what he was being quizzed on. They wanted to know why they had invoices from places like Myer and Aldi, and John didn't want to talk about the finances in any way, shape or form. So he resigned and hung up, and the Freedom Union came to a staggering halt. John's decided the best way to fix that is to put up the membership fees. God, I love the way these people think. Put up the membership fees from $200, which it has been for this financial year, to $400 for the next financial year. He's doubled it. I just put it to you, folks. People can't find out what happened with the money that was put together in the last membership drive, the first membership drive for the Freedom Union. And John refuses to be transparent. In the times where John was talking to me, he was all about transparency, all about being open, all about being accountable. It doesn't appear to be the case anymore. I'm not saying that's not, but it certainly doesn't appear to be the case. John could show us the books. He's welcome on this program anytime he likes. And he can open the books up, tell us where we've got it all wrong or where they have it all wrong. But at the moment, it certainly looks like people in the freedom movement are more interested in making a buck than doing anything to fix the bloody issue. More interested in getting a gathering together. There's a part of the reason I sit here on this farm away from everybody is that I don't want to be accused of doing these live shows to raise money, which I probably could do and would help. But these people, fucking leeches as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sorry if you are big supporters of any of them. I am so truly sorry for you. You're being fleeced. Maybe our freedom movement isn't going to get any further until we, the freedom movement, figure out who's doing the fleecing and who's being fleeced. There is a lot of division in the freedom movement. Most of it, in my opinion, and it is only an opinion, and like arseholes, we all have one. But in my opinion, it is almost 100% ego-based. And as we all know, I don't have a lot of time for ego. Wake up to yourselves, people. Get off your own little hobby horse. Get down in the grass, put your feet in it, ground yourself, and smell what the people are smelling. And that's your bullshit. Look out for yourselves, folks. Talk to you again tomorrow night. Watch out for the dickheads on the roads. They are about.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!